Welcome everybody to episode 4 of On Your Marks. Today is all about Ben Kimber, a developing 16-year-old distance runner from New Zealand. Ben is hoping to gain a scholarship to an NCAA university in the next couple of years. He has raced well over cross country and in distances between 1,500 metres to 5,000 metres on the track. His PBs currently stand for 1 mile, and a fantastic 4:32 for 3,000 metres, 3:48. For 5,000 metres, 15:56. In fact, he has improved his 3,000 metre PB by about a minute over the last 2 years. I'm also joined by his coach, Alastair Leslie, one of New Zealand's top runners in the 1980s and even going back into the 70s. Alastair was coached by the legendary Arthur Lydiard. He ran 3:44 for 1,500 metres, 4:02 for the mile, and 14:11 for 5,000 metres. Alastair coaches some of New Zealand's top runners, including multiple Open Men's National Champion Toby Galter. We're going to talk training, mistakes, patience, and what actually matters if you're a young athlete trying to make it. Welcome to the episode, Ben and Alastair.
Thanks for having me on, Sean. Thanks for having us on.
You're welcome, and you are the first Kiwis that we've had. It's taken 4 episodes to get a few Kiwis on the show. We've had all Australians so far, but we do like to make it an Oceania type show, and it's great to have a couple of New Zealanders on, and you are the very first. So it's a historic time, and it's wonderful that you can join us from across the ditch there. All right, so we might start then with Ben. When did your running journey begin, Ben?
Yeah, it's a good question. I started running a bit later on, I feel like, than a lot of the other people that are similar to my age. So I think it was back in around late 2022. Our parents put in a home gym, or they had a home gym just downstairs. We converted a 1-car garage into a home gym, and I started out not running but like doing light weights and stuff like that, like pull-ups and kettlebells, and then I really enjoyed that. And then from there I started just doing laps of our street. I don't exactly know why, but I soon found out pretty quickly that I was getting actually quite fit and quite fast. And then I did I think the first ever race I did was, I think it might have been like a 10K actually, and I was 13 years old, so straight into a 10K. And I ran like 41 minutes something, I think, for that at 13 years old, and that pretty much kickstarted my running journey. And I've just been getting faster and faster and loving it ever since then.
That's brilliant. So I liked the sound of you doing kettlebell training, and I've got some kettlebells, or had some kettlebells, and also chin-ups as well, or pull-ups I think you call them. How many pull-ups can you do, or are you still doing them, or was that something you only did before you started running?
Not too many pull-ups now, to be honest, Sean, but I remember I think my record was 12.
Well, still very good. There's no way in the world I could do 12 at the moment.
Yeah.
I think 3 or 4 would be about my best. I do have a friend who was aiming to hit 50, and he got very close. I think he got to 46, which I thought was unbelievable when I looked at him. And then when I attempted the same exercise, which is very hard, pulling your whole body weight up like that, that's just incredible. So, well done getting to 12. And so when you ran that 41 minutes, did that, when you said that excited you and motivated you to start taking on running more seriously, did you realise how good that was for a 13-year-old at that point in time? Have you done any reading, or did anyone say, mate, you can run?
It's a good question. I'm trying to think back. I honestly don't think so. I remember there was a 40-minute pacer and there was a 45-minute pacer for that race. And for some reason, I can't remember why, but I thought I might be able to do 45 minutes for that race. So I actually started off the race going with the 45-minute pacer, but it felt like too easy. So I actually just dropped that pacer and just did my own thing, and ended up with a 41 minute. And I don't know if that was good or not. And looking back, I realized that's actually a decent time, especially being so young.
An amazing time. And then what prompted you to join Alastair's squad? You were 13 when you ran the 41 minutes, and then how long did you take before you met up with Alastair?
Yeah, so there was a bit of time between when I ran that 41 minutes and joining Alastair. I was, after the 41 minutes 10K race when I was 13, I started enjoying it a lot more, and I was doing a lot more training on my own. I didn't have a coach, but I ended up doing a little bit too much, and I got a knee injury, like an overuse knee injury, and that actually took me out for quite a long time. I think it took me out for just over a year and a half. It was like I wasn't allowed to run, and after that, it was August of 2024 actually that I joined Alastair, because my parents decided that I needed a structure, and someone to keep me, from doing too much or keep me from overtraining. So being with Alice is really great to, keep me from not doing too much and in a structured way. Whereas before the year and a half break, I was just kind of doing whatever I wanted, running like during school, before school, and just kind of doing way too much. And obviously my body couldn't handle it. And now since I'm with Alastair, it's been like a year and a half, I think, since then, and I've been doing really, really well and performed well under a controlled structure.
Okay. When you were doing your solo training after that 10K for a year and a half as a 13 and 14-year-old, and you said the knee was the major hiccup there, what was the knee injury, do you remember?
The knee injury was called osteochondritis dissecans, so it's a bony injury. I had a couple MRI scans on it, and it's like a little, I think, lesion they call it in the knee on the bone, where it's a little like soft spot, and you can see it on the MRI. And it's annoying because those type of injuries take a long time, and they are not easy to heal. Like the only thing you can really do is just rest and recover. So over that year and a half break, I wasn't allowed to do too much high impact sports. Towards the end of that, I got into a little bit of football, just to test it out, and I got through the football season all right, and that's when I got the green light to go and start training again.
So football can be called football depending on the code and depending where you are in the world. And when I think of football in New Zealand, I think of rugby or rugby union. Are you talking soccer, that football, or are you talking rugby union?
Yeah, I'm talking soccer.
Fair enough, yeah. So
Yeah.
the football, yeah, fair enough. And then I lived in Melbourne for 10 years, and they call footy, or they call AFL footy, or footy,
Yeah.
not quite football. But in most places you go in the world, football will be soccer. Yeah, so they're fair enough. Did you enjoy playing football?
I did enjoy it. I was never the best on the team. I never made the A team. I was always in the B team. I didn't play football for too many seasons because I played it a little bit back when I was real young, but I just kind of played it for fun. Really, I was never that great.
Yeah, fair enough. And so you joined Alastair, and so you would have been 14 and a half to 15 at that point?
Yeah, I would have just have turned 15, I think. Yeah.
Sure. And what was it like with him in the early months?
It was really, really good. I got to meet all the people in the squad, and they're all super nice. And I saw quite a quick progression in those first few months, like faster than I expected, and I think faster than Alastair expected as well. And I think that just comes from maybe I had a bit of earlier, like previous training experience, and I was kind of getting that back a little bit. But I really, really enjoyed it in those first few months. It felt really, really good to get back.
Nice. Nice. And Alastair, what was Ben like to coach when he turned up in those early months? What did you think about Ben as a youngster initially?
Well, when I first met Ben, I thought, wow, this is an intense young man. He's really, really wants to know everything there is about athletics. He's very facts and figures based, and I worked out really quickly he likes to have a plan. And if he hasn't got the plan, he tends to drift a little bit. So straight away I knew that we had to structure a plan. He had to understand why he was following the plan, and then he had to practice the plan, and then he had to live and breathe the plan. So right from the very beginning, he was a little bit unusual compared to the other boys in the same age group who were very laid back and wanted to come along and have fun. Ben, I instantly recognised that he was serious about what he wanted to achieve.
Nice. So a real student of the sport from the get-go.
That's all.
So Ben, are you into your stats and your data? Like, are you one of those people who wears the GPS watch and you're into your Strava and your all of that sort of thing?
Yeah, I'm definitely a data kind of guy. Or every single run, I'm like afterwards, checking my watch, checking the stats, uploading it to Strava, and I like looking at the numbers.
Very good. So the watches are very clever these days. It seems like every time they come up with a new model of the Garmin or whatever the brand might be, they can tell us another thing about our athletic body, our physiology and whatnot. What sort of data do you find most valuable that you get from your watch and any other technology you might have there?
Definitely heart rate data. Heart rate and pace data obviously are the big two that I find most valuable. So when I run, I never use my watch heart rate. I wear a chest strap that just goes around my chest. I have a Garmin chest strap, and that's really good for giving accurate heart rate data. And I can look at that and compare like previous runs, whether like my heart rate's the same or different depending on the different routes. And another key metric that I like to look for is like ground contact time balance. So how much I'm spending on one foot compared to the other. That can kind of give me an insight into my running stride and see if there's any issues that are secretly kind of going unnoticed.
Excellent. And for recovery, do you look at like resting heart rate or any other attributes there that might help you deal, and Alastair as your coach as well, deal with the way you plan the upcoming training week or even that immediate day or days, like depending on what data you might receive regarding how you're recovering from a workout or a run or from the training week or the block?
I my watch gives me a resting heart rate number, and it stays pretty low, but I don't really look at that as whether I'm like rested or prepared for the training block. I just go off how I feel pretty much. I think that's a much better way to look at it. Like if my legs are feeling tired or I'm just feeling generally like low energy, I'll use that as much more of a metric than like just looking at resting heart rate data or something else like that.
Sure. Okay, now Ben, what are your short-term, medium-term and long-term goals in the sport?
Good question. Short-term, definitely obviously want to improve my 3K and probably my 5K time. So I think a realistic goal for me short-term is the under 840 for the 3,000 meters, and I want to go under 15 for the 5,000 meters. Medium term, like you mentioned at the start, I want to get on a scholarship and hopefully in the next couple of years to the United States and run for a university over there. And long term, I just want to get the most potential. I want to get the most out of my body as I can. I want to fully realize my running potential and take it as far as I can possibly go, whatever that may look like, really.
Oh, that sounds very wise and realistic there. So then, on the short-term goals of going under 840 and under 15 for the 3 and the 5K, that really won't be happening seriously, will it, until your next spring or / summer? Like, so you'll need to get through a winter block. Am I correct there? Is that the way it'll be working in New Zealand?
Well, I was thinking I could potentially, because there are some winter track meets here in New Zealand, and I could potentially be targeting one of those to try and get under 15 for the 5K, because I know there's a few 5K races on the track over in the winter, and I'll have enough time, I reckon, to potentially go under that 15 minutes, because I'm I'm pretty close, because if you convert my PB of 8:48 in the 3K, you convert that to a 5K time, it predicts 15:07 for a 5K, and I reckon I'm better at the longer stuff. So even if it's like, you know, a few seconds off, like I reckon I can break 15 hopefully pretty soon, like in this winter, within this winter block period.
I'm sure you can. You'll give it a big go anyway. Wonderful. Now, so look, I'm really interested to know there that you're an international, you know, you're a Kiwi, obviously you're over the ditch there, and training can vary a little bit between New Zealanders and Australians. We tend to have the real traditional sessions and whatnot, and training systems, and we've had our famous coaches, and same with the New Zealanders, and for a small country, or definitely, I mean, geographically you're quite big with the North Island and the South Island, but population-wise, what's the population of New Zealand at the moment, do you guys know?
About 5 million, I think.
About 5 million, so a relatively small population-wise country there. New Zealand have really punched above their weight. You know, they've produced so many good champions. So I'd love to know what your training is like. So Ben, explain your current training.
Walk through a week.
Yeah, maybe run us through a typical training week.
Yeah, of course. So start off with Mondays. We do a session around a grass field. So after school, Alastair runs the session, and the group will go and we do like run around this field in the winter. It'll be like a fartlek type session, and in the summer they have a painted on 400-meter running track around there. So we'll in the summer, when that's painted on, we'll do reps around the painted on track, and then the day after that is easy running, so just recover, be like 45 to 60 minutes usually, and then on Wednesday it's another track workout. So we'll go to the actual rubber track, the group, and then we'll do a workout there in the afternoon. Thursday it's the same thing as like Tuesday, so just more easy running, and then Friday is another track session at the actual rubber track, and Friday is usually like some sort of speed work, and then the Saturday is a rest day, so I'll take that day off, and then Sunday is typically my long run day. So for me, a long run would be like 90 minutes or so.
Okay. What would you typically do on the grass field, which is also a track in the summer, and just a field in the winter on the Monday? What would be a typical workout there?
Yeah, so in the winter, it'd be a fartlek session where you start off with short reps, and then you go to medium reps, and then you do long reps, and then you go back down to medium and then short reps. So it's kind of like a pyramid. You're building up and then going back down, and you're running around this outside of the grass field.
And how many minutes would that fartlek total from start to finish?
It's not too long. It'd probably be about 20 minutes,
Yeah,
would you say?
25.
25 minutes or so.
Yeah.
I don't really look at that metric that much, like how long it actually takes. I just kind of get through it.
Yeah, and then when you're at the main tartan track or rubber track on a Wednesday and Friday, do the sessions vary much between the summer or the track season and the winter or the cross country and road season?
Yeah, I think it's more of a question for you, Alastair. Like, what do you
Yeah,
think?
I'd love to hear from Alastair on that one. Yep.
They vary quite a bit. The volume in particular and the intensity varies from the winter block through to the summer block. I would say that we've got a group of people that are doing similar sort of programs, but we have to vary what they're doing over a period of time. So Ben and Jacob, who is one of his training partners, and Bernard, they might do a session of, just for example, 10 times 500, whereas some of the other girls or the younger ones might do 500s, but they might do a lot less. Depending on the time of the season, Ben's volume is much, much higher in the winter and a lot faster in the summer.
Fair enough. Oh, that's very good. So you mentioned different ages and obviously boys and girls in the group. So there are going to be quite a variety of runners in the squad. and you said the girls might do less 500s or whatever. How about somebody really quick like Toby within the group? Would he do more 500s or would he do longer reps at the same time?
Toby's an aerobic animal. He can handle huge volumes of training. I mean, every week he's coming in about 170k a week. He does sessions that are just unbelievable. You know, for the average runner, they just look at Toby and he just doesn't seem to be able to exhaust himself. So he could go in a session of miles, he could do maybe as many as 10 times a mile, or sub 5 by a long way, and still be fresh at the end. So he's a real inspiration to the likes of Ben and the others in the group, because they see him training and they realise what it takes to be an international runner, and that's the inspiration, I think, that's made the difference from these young ones coming through.
It's wonderful to have that role model there and somebody leading the way and somebody who races consistently well as well and handles himself really well in races and obviously in training unbelievably hard and long. Now, so Alastair, you were coached by the legendary Arthur Lydiard. What was it like training under Arthur?
Arthur was a real character. He was one of those guys that would have an influence on anybody that met him. If I had to summarise Arthur in one word, it would be a motivator. He could make half an hour with Arthur and you believed anything was possible. I look back at the early training with Arthur and I think to myself, I was so lucky to have somebody like that, such a legend, being able to direct my training as a young fella, exactly the same age as being here, and what an impact that had for my later life.
Yeah, oh, wonderful, that's good. And Alastair, what are your key teachings for developing distance runners?
A lot of it does come from Arthur, funny enough. I'm big on the long run. You mentioned the Australian system and the New Zealand system. I think it's a lot more similar than we realise. People like Pat Clohessy, who coached some of the top runners over there, he was influenced by Arthur Lydiard. So a lot of the Australian and New Zealand systems are very, very similar, and a lot of it's based around that long run. And right from an early age, I try and get these young guys out to do that hour and a half, 2 hour run if possible. I think that's the cornerstone to their success. And the earlier they can get into that, the longer their running career is going to be.
Fair enough. Now, I've done a bit of reading on Arthur and have a few of his books, read through them, studied them. And on that long run you mentioned, they had, was it a 32k around the local ranges just outside of Auckland, is that right?
Yes, that's correct, yes.
Started with a W, what was the name of the ranges there again?
There's the Waitarua Ranges and
the
Waitakere Ranges. So they're all out of West Auckland, out Titirangi way.
Yeah, so the run on the hilly course there would have had a lot of elevation. Do you believe that hills are important on a long run, a good undulating to very hilly long run? Do you believe a hilly long run is more valuable than, for example, a flat rhythm run for a long run?
They've both got their place, I think. Arthur, the very first day I met Arthur Lydiard, I arrived in Auckland. I was 15 years old, and Arthur said to me, look, I'm going to take you out for a bit of a run. And that bit of a run ended up being 15 miles over the Waitakere Ranges. Before then, I'd never run further than half an hour. But Arthur said, he installed it right from the beginning, that this is going to be the success. This is going to be the key to success later on. And after I'd finished the run, I couldn't walk for the rest of the day. And the way he motivated me, he said, do you know that you actually ran faster than Peter Snell did on his first run?
See.
And so all of that motivation, Arthur was such a skillful motivator. He had the ability to just impress ideas into a young athlete that installed the seeds of success right from the beginning. So as far as the long runs go, I think that was the key to the Lydiard program.
Brilliant. Now on that Lydiard program as well, apart from the long run, I think Arthur Lydiard was also into the long base, wasn't he? Like the run in that aerobic zone and probably no more than the threshold zone for as long as possible, and then do the hill block. And he was into the hill bounding, wasn't he? The bounding up the hill, and then finally the specific base pace track work as you're peaking on the track. Do you do that sort of thing? Do you like to give your runners a really long base of more aerobic work and not too much speed work for a good period of time? Does your training follow that sort of system?
No, our system is much more mixed than that. I think as Arthur evolved his program over time, over years, he definitely started to get blending more different styles of training into different blocks. Even though he would periodise his training, I think that there's a lot of misunderstanding on how Arthur actually trained his athletes. I got to speak to Peter Snell and Dick Taylor and a number of the Lydiard athletes, and then the ones who were influenced by him, like Rod Dixon and John Walker and all these guys. And their training, although it was Lydiard principles, was not like you would read in the Lydiard books. Things were definitely different in training than what was in those books.
Good to hear there. Now, on the where you like to train, obviously you're doing the track work there twice a week, and then another speed session on the grass. Are you a believer in mixing the surfaces around as much as possible?
Absolutely. I think especially somebody like Ben, he's good at row, cross country and track, and I think it's important to be conditioned to be able to run on all of those different surfaces. We use the Monday session, which, as Ben said, was a controlled fartlek type session, because it helps them recover after their long Sunday run. So they're usually out on the roads on the Sunday, and then on the Monday they come in and it's a softer surface. They can get some quality in without pounding their legs.
Good. Now, obviously, most runners have key races that they like to target and peak for, like in your juniors and even your senior runners' cases, like the national titles would take a top priority unless you're somebody really good like Toby, where it might be an international event like World Cross Country. But obviously they're peaking for the big ones. But do you believe in regular low-key racing as well, like club level and or park run and or fun run type regular weekend racing? Is that part of your coaching principle?
Yes, it has to be planned though. You have to make sure that you look at the calendar of events and you have these races lined up so it actually is beneficial to run, not just for the sake of running. And I think in New Zealand in particular, a lot of our young athletes make the mistake of racing too often. They try and run every club run, and they're encouraged to run Harriers, and they're encouraged to do all these different things, and they end up overdoing it. So for me, I like to just choose the big races. They always aim for the biggest races possible, and the minor races, the lead-up races, you have to plan them very carefully.
100%. I agree with you there. I think particularly with the school-aged athletes, they've got the school system races, don't they? Then they have if they're in a club, then they have the pressure from the club to try and get points or to contribute to a relay team, to make up the numbers there. And then there's their championship races, which they usually do as an individual, and they've got to try and fit it all in, don't they? And then there might be the lure of the local fun run or road race, or maybe a trail race, which is becoming more popular now too, the trail running scene. So it can be very tempting for a young runner to over-race, can't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's a real smorgasbord out there, really. It's a great sport, running. There's plenty to choose from. Funny, when athletes don't go too well, I like to tell them, look, you can. There's always another race, but none of us like to fail. We all like to succeed, but there is always another race around the corner. So, being on racing, what have been your best 3 races over the last 12 months?
Yeah, good question. Definitely the first one that comes to mind for me is the one that I ran last weekend, which was my 8:48 3,000 metre PB. That race was the secondary school North Island Championships, and I came first place in that race as well. So not only was it a new PB by 7.5 seconds, but also came first place by about 8 seconds or so ahead of the second place competitor. So I was really, really happy with that race. In the last 12 months, one that I would also say might be my Cook's Classic mile PB. That was back in January, late January. That was one of the first miles that I've done. I think it was the second ever mile race that I ever did. And I ran 4:32, my current PB, and I was happy with that race because it gave me a lot of confidence, because I was a bit unsure about my mile fitness or what I could do for a mile, because it's not usually my typically favoured event, but I was really happy with that one. I paced it pretty well in a field that was pretty good, with some pretty good runners in there. And then the other one I'd say in the last 12 months would have to be the secondary school cross-country nationals from last year. That was back in June of 2025. I came 33rd place in that race, and that was my first year running as a senior. And there were 170 other runners in that race, so to come 33rd, I was pretty happy with that, because it was 6k and it was a pretty brutal course as well, lots of mud and some fairly sharp uphills and downhills, so I was pretty happy to come away 33rd place first year as a senior with that one.
You've had some very encouraging race results there. Well done, Ben. Now, Ben, how many kilometres per week are you currently averaging?
Well, good question. I think the past few weeks haven't been like super high because of like finishing track season. It's probably been like 60 to 70 Ks a week for the past couple of weeks. Before that, it was up around like 80 to 85 when I was like doing like training in the middle of summer. And then heading into this cross-country season training in the cross-country block, it'll probably be more like 90 to 100 or so in a week.
Looking on the good build. And when you do your recovery runs on a Tuesday, Thursday, and even your long run, what pace do you average?
Yeah, for the Tuesday and Thursday runs, I try to keep it really easy. Like I definitely don't push the pace on those runs. Probably be between like 440 or 450 per kilometre for those runs. Yeah, the Sunday long run, I go a bit quicker to more of like Alastair calls it like easy to steady. So that pace would be closer to like 4:10s or so. So a bit more, bit quicker on the long run.
On your long run, I saw on your Insta a few posts ago, I think, you like to do it as a progression run, i.e. gradually getting faster. So walk us through that. Like how do you start out when you're warming up, and what kind of pace do you start at, and then what do you go to in the middle, and what would you finish off at the end of that kind of long progression run?
Yeah. So I did a few long runs that were as a progression. How I do it is like the first 30 minutes was like easy, and then the second 30 minutes was a bit more steady, and then the last 30 minutes was more like a tempo kind of effort. At the start, probably be like the same pace as like my easy day pace, like 450s or so, and then in the middle 30 minutes might be a bit quicker to more like 410s, and then the last 30 minutes to more of like 345s, 350s as like a tempo effort. But I don't do those for every single long run. But that was just for a little bit back in the track training period, and now heading into cross country, it'll be more like longer, like steady state, so not as much progression.
Okay, so Wellington, you're in Wellington. Overall, like, what's it like for running? Is it a hilly city? Do you have a combination of flat trails, hilly trails? What's it like when you're out there doing those long runs and recovery runs, when you're not on the grassy field and you're off the tartan track, you're running around? What's it like?
Wellington's good because there's plenty of hills. There's definitely no shortage of hills around Wellington. But it's also nice because there's flat trails as well. So there's the Hutt River that flows through not Wellington, but it flows through Lower Hutt, which is a city just outside of Wellington. And there's a Hutt River Trail that goes along that, so I run along that quite often. That's a nice flat trail. If I want to run hills, I live on a hill, so that's pretty easy to do. I just go out the door and start running some hills. Most of the time, especially for my easy runs, I'm on the flat, like doing the Hutt River Trail, or along the Wellington Harbour waterfront, or other flat trails to try and keep it as easy as possible. And for the long run, I try to keep it pretty flat as well, like similar terrain. Maybe I'll add in a few hills if I'm feeling like it, but most of the time it's flat running for me.
Nice. Now your squad, you've done very well. I've checked Alastair's posts, and there's often people are jumping up on the podium at different track meets and different running events around the country and around the world. Who are other squad members that you like to work with and train with?
Yeah, so Alice's squad is great because there's a few other guys there that are good level, and they push me. Obviously, we talked about Toby. He's one that I don't necessarily train with him because he's way too fast for me, but as Alastair said, it's someone that I can look up to, and be like, oh, I can get there maybe with some more training, right? But some people that I actually train with, one of them is Jacob Williams. He's a really good up-and-coming runner, so he's a year younger. He's over a year, maybe like a year and a half younger than me, but he's got some really, really quick PBs. Over the summer, he ran really quick, I think like 4:01 for the 15 and 3:41 for the 3,000 meters on the track. So he definitely pushes me in training. He's a great one to train with. And another one who's a year older than me, Bernard. He's 4:01 for the 15 as well, I think. He's more focused on the 800 and 1500. I think he's. What's Bernard run for an 800? Has he gone sub 2?
Just sub 2.
Yeah. So he's a sub 2 800 meter guy. So he's really quick. So sometimes if I'm doing like 300 meter reps or 200 meter reps, I'll hop in with him and he'll pull me along. So those are some of the guys that are really, really good to train with.
Awesome, great sounding squad there. Alastair, has there been one big sign in training and or racing that has shown you that Ben can go on and become a really good senior runner?
Not so much one session, but going back to Arthur Lydiard, he'd use a benchmark of 200 metres. So if you couldn't run 28 seconds for 200 metres, you didn't have a career as an 800 metre runner. And so I sort of tend to use that, and quite often at the end of a session I'll put these guys over a 200 or a 150 or even a 300 just to see how fast they can go on tired legs. Ben shocked the life out of me one day when he came out and he ran 26 seconds for a 200 after a series of 1200 metre reps. Both Jacob and Bernard, they did the same sort of thing. I think Jacob ran 25 and Bernard just dipped under 25 seconds. So I was gobsmacked. I thought to myself, wow, there's something in these guys that I hadn't seen previously. I just thought they were typical long distance runners, but it just shows that, that Arthur Lydiard's benchmark still works today.
I agree. I think that's a great benchmark to go off there, and I think he did say, didn't he, that if you want to run a quick 400 or 800, you need to be able to run a quick 200. And if you want to be able to run a quick mile, you need to be able to run a quick 4 or 800. And he talked about all those distances and looked at the half the distance. And obviously you need a certain amount of speed, don't you? Even with the marathoners these days, if they're running sub 3 minute Ks, I mean, they're hitting 250s now, aren't they, the really top guys? if you're going to do 42, 250 kilometres in a row without a break, you need to be able to run a 1 kilometre much quicker than a 250. So it all converts back down to the speed in the end. So, wow, you've got, if you can bang out a 26 there, Ben, then you've got a really bright future ahead of you. That'd be really good, even out of the blocks on fresh legs, let alone after doing 12, what was it, after 12 200 workout?
It was a 1200 metre session, so I think
A 1200 metre session, right, yeah.
We did 4 times 1200, and just as I said, I just like to just test them out occasionally with some fast 200s at the end, and wow, yeah, shock of my life.
Yeah. Wow. So Ben, talking about that future then, and with the firepower of the speed, and not only that, but obviously I think even more important, the attitude, which has really been oozing out of you during the interview, and even from what Coach Alastair's been saying, you've got that attitude and the love and the passion for the sport. I think that's even more important than having natural ability, but of course you do need that ability as well. So it's a while before you graduate from high school and you can start university. And you mentioned you've got goals to study and race at an NCAA college. Would you have a preference as to which college or colleges at this point?
Yeah. So I've thought a little bit about like where I would want to go, and one place that I think would be just a dream school to go to is University of Colorado Boulder, because you can do the altitude training there. They get their athletes every year to go up to altitude and do altitude stuff there, which is, you know, obviously what the professional athletes do, and it seems to be provide like good performance benefits. And also like the facilities at Boulder are just, you know, state of the art. They've got their own like 300-meter indoor running track, state of the art facilities. Their athletics program is strong, really strong there. And as well as academics as well. Academically, got strong offers that and interesting subjects that I think I could study. But if it wasn't University of Colorado Boulder, I would probably choose somewhere out in the west where it's maybe a little bit warmer. Maybe somewhere like California would be cool.
Nice. On Boulder, I mean, what a great choice there. Have you read the book Running with the Buffaloes?
No, I haven't.
No, it's about the coach there for a long period of time had been Mark Wetmore, who's now retired from coaching, I've heard. I don't know who the current coach is, but you might know who the current coach is. But Mark Wetmore had been there for many years, and they've won several national championships, particularly over cross country, as a team, men and women, and individual champions like the Gouchers at Cara and Adam Goucher had come out of the Boulder, University of Colorado, the Buffalo training system under the great coach Mark Wetmore there. They've got a real history, but I know some good Kiwis have lived and trained over there, like Geordie Beamish on the on team, and a couple of the boys who've been on the on team, one of them's still there, Ollie Hoare and Morgan McDonald. I coached them for quite long periods of time when they were juniors. Morgan for 10 years and Ollie for about 3 years. And they've loved living and training in Boulder with that on pro team now for several years and really enjoyed training there. Obviously the great Kiwi runner Geordie Beamish has lived and trained there. It's worked well for him. Good Aussie friends of mine from way back in my era, they ended up over there for a while, and one of them lived there for a long time, Lee Troop. Still mixing between Geelong, his hometown, and Boulder, where he's got coaching and racing businesses going on there, and coming back and staying with his family. And he ran very well in the latter part of his marathon career in Boulder. And a good friend of mine, Kim Gillard, he lived in Boulder for quite a long period of time. He lives not too far from me now in Queensland, just down the road. They all speak very highly of Boulder as a great place to train at altitude there, and it's all set up for your running and very livable town. So I'm sure you'd love it there if you can make the Uni of Colorado there in Boulder. So that'd be wonderful. Now, Alastair, I saw a picture or two of the great Rod Dixon, the Olympic medalist in the 1500 metres from way back in the 1970s and the winner of the New York Marathon, I think, in 1983. He's come along and supported your runners at a few races there. What's your connection with Rod, and what does he have with your squad and your club there? Any connections there at all?
Rod has been one of my main inspirations when I first started running. I was a footballer, or as the Australians call them, soccer players, and wasn't interested in running very much, but I had a PE teacher that said that I was quite a good runner and that I should switch from football to running. And he put up a poster in our gym, and it was a poster of Rod Dixon in the latest Adidas SL72 running shoes. And this big poster was supposed to be an incentive for me to start up as a runner and give up football. I'd quite every day would go to the gym and we'd look at this poster, and I wasn't around I didn't know who Rod Dixon was after 72, where he got third in the Olympic 1500 final, but I did watch the 1974 1500 final where Filbert Bay won and John Walker was second, and I think Rod came in fourth in that race. And the only person I knew in that race that, you know, because of the poster, was this great Rod Dixon. So I followed his career basically from that day on, and that race was the thing that got me interested in running, because Rod did so well. I thought, wow, if New Zealanders, and then John Walker as well, I thought if New Zealanders can do that, then, you know, I'd like to be part of that, or, you know, that was the dream, that was the spark anyway. So from that point, Rod always was one of my heroes. And then later on in my career, I got to meet Rod, and I found him one of the nicest guys you would ever want to meet. He's a genuine, good person. He's got the same sense of humour as I've got, which helps. And he's inspired so many people over the years, especially the young youth coming through. He's helped hundreds of thousands of kids get interested in running with his kids marathon group and so on. I got to race Rod, or run behind Rod, several times, and always afterwards, always friendly. And I've met lots and lots of Olympians, lots of celebrities over my time. I'd rate Rod as right at the very top for the sort of person that everyone should meet. I think Rod has given so much back to the sport, especially with our squad. He's really taken an interest with the young ones coming through, such as Toby. He's met Toby. He's certainly inspired, I'd say, 3/4 of our group to become better runners, and they would all love to meet Rod Dixon. And someday I would hope that they all get to meet him, because he's such an inspiration.
Oh, isn't that wonderful to hear? And look, if Rod ever got a hold of this tape in the interview, I think, yeah, well done, Rod, for doing that. Like, we have a few Aussie superstars like, you know, Deke and Mona, who give back to the sport like that, and they've inspired so many people over the years. And it can really touch so many young people and old people as well, masters runners, young and old alike, when they either get to shake hands with and or encounter, talk to, or even just listen to them speak or be interviewed, when superstars are giving back like that, sharing their experiences and just offering their encouragement and that sort of thing. You can't beat it. He definitely was a genuine superstar on the track and on the road. So well done, Rod, and keep it up. You know, the more you can do that and keep it, the better. It's fantastic. Now, Ben, Rod's obviously a fairly old guy, and you might be really into following the old guys and looking back at the history of the sport. But who is your favourite current athlete in the world?
Well, it's a good question. One athlete that I've always looked up to is Eliud Kipchoge, the marathon runner. I've always thought, like, when I first saw he did first learned about him and how he did the sub-2-hour marathon, he's always been like kind of my number one athlete. He's just a complete inspiration, you know, with what he's done.
Lovely, yeah. He's certainly been a star, almost superhuman there, what the great Kipchoge did, particularly on the road, but even after that long and wonderful track career that he had, but what he did on the road was just amazing. So, yeah, a great role model there for young people. Ben, do you have a favourite New Zealand athlete of all time?
I'd probably be Peter Snell. Yeah, I'd say Peter Snell.
That was incredible. I mean, he won the 800 metres in 1960 in Rome as a young fellow where he wasn't expected to win, and then he did the double, which was just mind-blowing 4 years later there to do the 800 metre, 800 metre double. I've seen footage of a few of his races, and that kick that he produced anywhere on that final lap was like absolutely explosive. I don't think I've seen any kick even with the modern generation of runners there. Apart from Mo Farah, but I mean, Mo had a different technique. He was light, nimble, the way he kicked. But Snell was powerful. He tore up the track. If there's any modern runner who runs anything like Peter Snell, it'd be our own. I don't know if you've watched any of Claudia Hollingsworth's races, but she's a similar kind of runner. She can just rip into the track, and she's so powerful there. But anyway, there you go. Now, Alastair, New Zealand only has that small population, like we mentioned. It's produced all these stars, like going back to Jack Lovelock way back in the day, and Murray Halberg, Peter Snell, John Davies, John Walker, Dick Quacks, Rod Dixon, who we mentioned. Then going more into the modern era, this century, you've had incredible runners like Nick Willis, multiple major championship medalist. Geordie Beamish, who's been tearing up the tracks with that incredible kick when we're talking about kick finishes. Lorraine Moller, again going back a bit further in time, and Alison Rowe, great road runners there, to name a few. And then plus young Sam Ruth, who's just recently burst onto the scene. What do you attribute this huge success to with a country of only 5 million people?
I think there's a number of factors. One of the ones that most people don't think about is we have a beautiful country. We have wide open spaces. We have the rolling hills. There's not a huge population. We have a moderate climate. So it's very conducive to being outdoors. And the typical New Zealander loves to be outdoors. And the typical New Zealander is very competitive. You'll find that New Zealanders, just like Australians, are very competitive people. And so when it comes to sport, we like to give it everything we've got and be competitive against our rivals. So I think that's a factor that comes into it. Obviously, the Lydiard influence early on in the coaching area. We've had the athletes that Arthur produced, but also athletes that coaches that use the Lydiard system have produced. And one person in New Zealand that tends to get neglected is one of the greatest coaches I've ever met. His name is Arch Jelly. And runners would know of Arch Jelly, but the average New Zealander has probably heard of Arthur Lydiard, but most people haven't heard of the great Arch Jelly. Now, he's had more of an influence, I believe, on the younger group that have come through, certainly in the 80s and the 90s, in the early 2000s. I'd say Arch took over from Arthur's mantle and basically has been more responsible for the latest generation that have come through. And of course, the other factor is that a lot of these young athletes now have access to American universities. So they're getting the benefits of the coaching over there and coming back and passing on those experiences and inspiring the next generation. I think that Sam Ruth, we mentioned him before, I think he's typical of having a system in place that the great, the recent coach now, Craig Kirkwood, who I believe is taken over from the Arthur Lydiards and the Arch Jellies, and now it's the Craig Kirkwood. He's producing a group of young runners on principles based around the Lydiard type model, but refined to the latest methods that they're using over in America and over in Europe and so on. So I think we've always had the natural ability. Sam Ruth has been a natural. Most New Zealanders are natural. We're strong. We're well bred. But I think it's the competitive nature that shines through, and also the environment we've got to train in.
Wonderful, Ben. Now, Ben, how do you balance your training and your schoolwork?
Yeah, it's not too difficult at the moment, at least not with like obviously I got Easter holidays at the moment and not too many tests and stuff. I get this thing called a study spell, so I get a 1 hour period 4 times a week where I can basically leave school and do whatever I want pretty much. It's called a study spell because they want you to study, but I try to like just actually do all the work that I can or that I should do in school, so that I don't have to do it outside of school, which means I can spend more time training and focusing on training. But like the sessions with Alastair, they're after school on Monday and Wednesday and Fridays, so it's not like I'm getting out of school or anything to do these trainings. So I just fit it around school, and like the Tuesday and Thursday easy runs, I'll typically do those before school. So like I just fit it around kind of the school time, which is like 9 o'clock till 3:15 is when I finish. So it's not too bad at the moment.
Fair enough. You mentioned you like to do the majority of your schoolwork during school hours, and a lot of runners are like that I've spoken to over the years. A lot of the kids, and even when they're at university, the same kind of thing. And I think running is one of those sports which is, when you're looking at the training and the amount of hours you do each week, it's quite compacted compared to a lot of sports like multi-events, for example, like triathlon, where you can just about triple the amount of time you've got to be out there, and those long grinding rides, for example. Even surf lifesaving, which is really big over here, and depending where you are in New Zealand, fairly big in New Zealand. Again, multi-events, all the different disciplines, and then sports like gymnastics, and even sports or arts, if you'd like to call them, like ballet or dancing. They're doing 25, 30 hours a week, but you could virtually be a world-class runner off 10 hours training if you're only looking at the running, or you could be a national class, like a Sam Ruth, or even yourself there, Ben, off maybe 6 or 7 hours of running. So it's kind of compacted. You go to training, you might be there for 90 minutes on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but you've got to get it done in that time. And I think runners are so used to getting it done in that, like, quite intensely. Even on a long run, you're working fairly hard for an hour and a half, but you get it, you're used to, and we are, as runners, used to getting it done in that compact period of time. And I think running is a sport that really helps students to be able to do that. So you're focusing, you're listening to your teacher. If you're told to do a task, you'll be like, it's like you're training, you get it done. So keep up the great work there, and I'm glad you're doing a lot of it, during 9 to 3. During those business hours when we're meant to be working hard, so great job. Now, I've got a couple of quick fire questions there, Ben, to finish off, and I'd like you to choose an option out of the 2 options presented in each question. Okay, so you pick one or the other. First of all, what's the best bird, a kiwi or an albatross?
Probably the kiwi. Yeah,
okay, right, surprise, surprise. Secondly, Nike or New Balance running shoes?
Nike all the way.
Fair enough. Sam Ruth or Peter Snell?
Peter Snell was great, but I gotta go with Sam Ruth. He's a beast.
North Island or South Island of New Zealand?
North Island.
Okay. England or Australia?
I've never been to England, but I've been to Australia, so I'll say Australia.
Good answer there, well done. Meat pies or pizza?
Oh, pies.
Good on you. Fishing or surfing?
Or I've never really got much into surfing, but fishing's kind of boring, so I'm going to say surfing.
Good, eh? Cycling or skateboarding?
I'll go cycling.
Nice. Board shorts or jeans?
Probably board shorts, because us New Zealanders are always at the beach,
Yeah, you like the Aussies there. Studying or sleeping?
Sleeping, definitely. Love that.
I'm with you there. Yeah, chocolate or vegetables?
Definitely the vegetables. Yeah, eat your
Okay.
veggies.
Good for you. Boston Marathon or World Cross Country?
Or I'd say Boston Marathon.
Long runs or track work?
Oh, that's a good question. I love the long runs. I'm an
Okay.
enjoyer. Yeah, I love the long runs.
Chin-ups, or like you call them, pull-ups or push-ups?
I like the pull-ups probably.
Good, eh? Sheeps or goats?
We have lots of sheeps in New Zealand, so I'm going to say goats.
Oh, really? Oh, I see. You voted against the sheep. I didn't expect that. Thank you. All right, so in closing, we can see that Ben is a young runner who obviously loves his sport. He trains in a country with a rich tradition of great runners who train in stunning environments. He has developed strongly under the tutelage of an experienced coach who has trained under Kiwi running royalty. We wish him the best of luck for a bright running future. So thanks a lot for coming along, Ben and Alastair. It's been an absolute pleasure. Now, thank you for watching and listening, everyone. Don't forget, keep your toes behind the line at the start and always run hard through the finishing line. And what you do in between is up to you.
Thanks, Sean.
Thanks, Sean.